Why do you feel like the universe forgot your name? How did life get so heavy when all you've ever wanted was peace, purpose, and one clear sign that you're still on the right path? Let me speak straight to the ache behind your smile. The quiet war you fight between trusting divine timing and fearing you're too late. You've prayed, you've worked, you've tried to stay positive, but still you feel like something invisible is blocking your blessings, like your soul's music is playing on mute. So let me ask you something raw and real. What if you're not unlucky, just out of alignment? What if the things you've been chasing are delaying the things meant to find you? What if you're not being punished, you're being redirected? Because here's the spiritual promise no one told you loud enough. You're not out of blessings, you're out of rhythm. And once you tune back into the divine frequency within you, the peace returns, the clarity returns, the flow returns. You return. In the next few minutes, I'm not just going to motivate you, I'm going to help you remember who you are. This isn't hype, this is healing. Let's reset your rhythm and call your power back home. You were never meant to chase. You were meant to attract. When you seek, you scatter your power. When you align, you receive. You've been running, haven't you? Running toward dreams that keep slipping through your fingers. Running from fear, from lack, from the echoing silence of unanswered prayers. And every time you think you're close, it moves just a little further. But listen to me now. You were never meant to chase. Chasing is for the mind that believes it's unworthy of being chosen. Chasing is what we do when we forget we are already enough. There's a rhythm in this life, a divine rhythm, and it's not impressed by panic or desperation. It's impressed by alignment, by faith, by calm authority. The oak tree does not chase the sunlight. It rises into it. The river doesn't beg the ocean to receive it. It flows, and the ocean welcomes what was always meant to return. Back then, you thought action was power. You believed that more effort meant more results. You worked longer hours. You filled more notebooks with goals. You obsessed over timelines. But still, you felt empty. Still nothing came. And you questioned your worth. You thought maybe you weren't enough. Maybe you were behind. That's the lie this world sells. That hustle is holy. That running is proof you care. But truth doesn't live in noise. And creation doesn't happen in chaos. The spiritual law is clear. What is truly yours cannot be taken. What you are aligned with, you attract without strain. So let me ask you this. Who told you that you had to beg for your blessings? Who made you believe that peace was earned only after burnout? Why do you bow before fear like it holds your future? There's a divine current, and you've been swimming against it. Not because you're weak, but because you forgot the truth of who you are. You are not a beggar at the gates of life. You are the gate. You are not broke, you are simply out of rhythm. The twist comes when you stop, when you pause the panic, when you silence the noise. When you realize the things meant for you, they've been trying to find you, but they couldn't recognize your energy, not when you were wearing desperation like perfume. The moment you return to your center, everything changes, not overnight, not always loudly, but surely, because when you align, the world does not rush in to test you, it responds to you. Your calm becomes a magnet, your clarity, a signal, your faith, a frequency, and the impact. You stop surviving and start receiving. You no longer spend your days in a race against time. You become timeless. You move with purpose, not panic. You trust without proof. And what once avoided you now begins to orbit around you, because you are no longer chasing, you are becoming, and becoming is how the divine recognizes its own. Your finances are echoes of your frequency. Money is not paper. It is proof of inner order or inner chaos. You look at your wallet and feel the sting of not enough. You look at your bills and feel the breath tighten in your chest, and you start to spiral. You blame the economy. You blame yourself. You say, if only I had more. But more money is not the answer. More alignment is. Because your finances are not numbers. They're not status. They're not even security. They are sound. They are echoes, the after vibration of your inner state. And your energy is chaotic, your money scatters. When your thoughts are rooted in fear, your flow becomes blocked. And when your belief is laced with unworthiness, your bank account reflects the very story you keep telling yourself. Let me take you back. There was a time when you had nothing but hope. And somehow, even then, things worked out. A door opened. A stranger helped. An opportunity came. Because hope, real, grounded hope, carries a frequency that bends reality. But then came the fear, the pressure, the noise. You forgot what got you through. You traded faith for facts, soul for struggle. And that's when things started to unravel. You see, people try to fix money by fixing money. They chase gigs, hustles, loans, promotions. But the spiritual law has always been this. Money is attracted to order, not just physical fusor, soul order, mental clarity, emotional peace. A scattered soul cannot hold wealth because it leaks from the cracks in belief. You must begin to ask, what am I echoing? Am I vibrating survival or sovereignty? Am I aligned with abundance or addicted to fear? The twist comes when you realize money does not belong to the rich. It belongs to the aligned. And alignment is not something you buy, it is something you remember. You remember it when you speak power instead of panic. You remember it when you stop saying, I can't afford, and start declaring, I'm creating space for this. You remember it when you bless the money leaving your hand, trusting it will return multiplied, not because of superstition, but because of spiritual certainty. The impact. You stop seeing money as a god and start seeing it as a guest, a respectful visitor, one who responds to the energy of the home you've built within. You become intentional, grateful, grounded, not because you have more, but because you finally are more. And that shift changes everything. Because when your frequency becomes wealth, the wealth has no choice but to come find its reflection. The law of rhythm is not random, it's sacred. When you fight divine timing, you declare war on your own blessings. There is a rhythm to life, a pulse quiet but unshakable, beating beneath everything you see. And when you ignore it, when you force against it, when you scream, why not now? You don't speed things up. You disconnect from what was already coming. There was a time in your life when you believed faster meant better. You thought if it wasn't here yet, you were doing something wrong. You looked at everyone else, achieving, receiving, arriving, and you asked, why not me? But you never stopped to ask, what if the delay is divine? You weren't being punished. You were being tuned, because timing isn't about convenience. It's about alignment. If the blessing arrives before you're ready, it becomes a burden. If the opportunity opens before your soul is prepared, it becomes chaos in disguise. We live in a world addicted to urgency. Faster, louder, now. But urgency is the anthem of the unaligned. True power is never in a rush. It arrives with grace, with presence, with clarity. The law of rhythm doesn't bend to panic, it bows only to trust. I know what it's like to feel forgotten, to feel like the heavens have gone silent while your heart screams for breakthrough, to watch others receive what you've been praying for, and wonder if you were skipped. But what if you weren't skipped? What if your season isn't late, it's just sacred? The twist is, it was never about waiting. It was about preparation. It was about who you were becoming while the seed took root under the soil. Because here is truth, spiritual, eternal, unshakable truth. No door that is yours will ever be locked forever. But every door has its rhythm, and it will only swing open to the knock of readiness. The impact of understanding divine rhythm is radical peace. No more anxiety over clocks and calendars. You begin to trust the pauses. You begin to dance with time, not fight it. And the moment you honor the rhythm, you become rhythm, and that's when life starts to move with you. Panic is a signal that you've forgotten your source. The soul cannot starve, only the mind believes in famine. Panic, that breathless spin inside your chest, that noise in your head that tells you it's all falling apart, that rush of thought saying you'll run out, you'll be left behind, you won't make it. We've all been there. Panic is the language of disconnection. It doesn't mean you're weak, it means you've wandered from the truth, not the world's truth, not logic, but sacred truth. The truth that you are always connected to the source, to supply, to wisdom, to timing, to grace. Panic is the siren of the ego, the false self. It tells you you're alone. It tells you you have to fix it all yourself. But listen carefully. The soul does not panic. The soul remembers, and what it remembers is this. You are never truly in lack, even when the account is low, even when the job is gone, even when the world says not enough. Your source is untouched, unbothered, still flowing. You see, we've been trained to panic when things look uncertain because we confuse the outer world with our inner supply. We think the job is the source, the paycheck is the source, the client is the source, and when those shake, we crumble. But those are only channels, not source. And source cannot be shut down. It is infinite, quiet, calm. It is the whisper that says, I carried you then, I carry you still. The challenge is real. Bills, deadlines, delays, they are loud, and fear wants to be fed. But if you answer fear with fear, you multiply it. If you answer panic with silence, you dissolve it. The twist is this. Peace is not the result of solved problems. It is the beginning of real solutions. When you return to your source, not mentally, but spiritually, doors open where there were none. Ideas come where there was confusion. Help appears where you thought there was none. The impact? You stop fearing what leaves. You stop grasping. You stop gasping. You start knowing. You start walking in that sacred assurance that even in the dark you are held. Even in the storm, you are guided. Even in the silence, something greater is speaking for you. And when that knowing returns, the panic ends. Because you no longer live as if the world is your provider. You walk as one who remembers, I am sourced by something eternal. I cannot run out, because I come from the infinite. You cannot be poor when you are aligned. Abundance is not found, it is remembered. Poverty is not a punishment, it is a pattern waiting to be broken. Poverty doesn't start in the pocket, it starts in the pattern. The pattern of forgetting who you are, the pattern of shrinking when you're called to expand, the pattern of thinking money is something you chase, instead of something you attract by being fully, completely aligned. There was a time when you didn't know how this worked. You thought the external world controlled everything. Who got ahead, who got left behind, who received, who lacked. You measured your worth by what you had, and when you had little, you believed you were little. But that was the lie. The truth is, no soul born in alignment with the divine can ever be poor, because alignment unlocks vision, it opens flow, it restores what the world tried to bury, your knowing. The knowing that you are the source, the signal, the sower, and the soil. And once you remember that, nothing outside you can define your enoughness again. But the challenge comes when your eyes see lack. When the bills are real, the account is dry, the people around you speak only in limitation. How do you believe in abundance when all you feel is shortage? You realign. You remember that abundance is not an emotion, it is a position, a soul-level posture that says, I come from the infinite. I cannot be denied what matches my truth. You stop asking, where is my breakthrough, and start asking, where am I out of rhythm with who I truly am? Because the world responds not to your panic, but to your posture, not to your fear, but to your frequency. And when you return to alignment, doors open not because you begged for them, but because they were already yours. They were simply waiting for you to meet them. As the person who no longer doubts, the twist is this: abundance doesn't arrive, it emerges. It rises up from within the moment you stop identifying with lack. It shows up when you stop living in survival mode and step into sacred mode, where every decision, every word, every thought honors the truth that you are sourced from something infinite. And the impact: you stop needing money to feel safe, because you are safe, and that knowing becomes a magnet. You no longer live from paycheck to paycheck. You live from principle to principle. Your life becomes a reflection of your inner structure, not your outer struggle. You no longer just survive, you stabilize. you expand, and then you overflow, because a soul in alignment cannot stay small. It rises, it radiates, and it receives. What you speak sets the tempo of what you receive. Your word is your wand. Strike the right note and wealth harmonizes. You are not waiting on results. Results are waiting on your rhythm. There is no neutral word. Everything you speak is either creating or decaying. You say, "It's just how I feel," but feelings spoken become frequencies. You say, "I'm broke," and your life obeys. You say, "Nothing works out for me," and your world bends to that beat. Your words are not casual, they are commands. Each sentence is a seed, and the soil never says no. It simply reflects what was sown. Back then you didn't know this. You repeated what you heard. You echoed generational scripts like "we can't afford that," or "life is hard," or "people like us never get ahead." You thought it was realism, but it wasn't realism, it was rhythm. And you were speaking yourself into a song that was never yours. The detail is this: you don't need to be perfect to attract abundance, but you must be precise. Precise in your language, precise in your tone, because the universe does not respond to wishful thinking. It responds to decisive speaking. And when your word is fractured, your life is fragmented. The challenge is not that you don't want better, it's that you don't speak better. You can pray for abundance and still cancel it with "I can't." You can visualize wealth and still neutralize it with "it's too late for me." The contradiction blocks the blessing. But here comes the twist. You don't have to fix your whole life overnight. You only have to tune your voice. Speak peace when your mind spins. Speak enough when your eyes see lack. Speak progress when your past screams failure. The words don't lie. They lead. They lead your emotion. They lead your decisions. They lead your reality. And eventually, your life rises to match your language. The impact is revolutionary. You stop using your voice to narrate limitation and start using it to compose freedom. You become intentional with every sentence. You correct yourself mid-thought. You bless what hasn't arrived as if it's already on its way. And slowly, your speech becomes your strategy, not empty positivity, but sacred command. You no longer describe your circumstances, you direct them, and that is how rhythm is restored. That is how wealth begins. Money is not a goal, it is a mirror. It reflects your faith, your order, your rhythm. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you want. You've been taught to chase money like a destination, to set it as the end goal, the finish line, the proof of success. But the truth is, money isn't a goal, it's a mirror. It doesn't show up because you want it. It shows up because you're aligned with it. And if you feel frustrated, stuck, always short, that's not punishment. That's reflection. It's your current level of self-belief. Echoing back, it's your habits, your energy, your faith, projected into form. Because money doesn't lie, it simply reveals. Back in the early stages of your life, money seemed like freedom, the answer to everything, the thing that could finally silence the fear, the doubt, the shame. So you ran, you worked, you grinded, you tried to earn your way out of unworthiness. But no matter how much you gained, it slipped, or it drained you, or it never felt like enough, because the mirror wasn't clean. Your inner world was chaotic, and so your results were too. Here's the detail no one tells you. Money responds more to structure than hustle, more to identity than effort, more to clarity than desperation. You can work 18 hours a day and still repel abundance if your inner dialogue is full of doubt. You can have talent and drive, but if you believe deep down that it's hard, or "I don't deserve it," you'll unconsciously block the very thing you're trying to pull in. The challenge is real. How do you rebuild the mirror when it keeps showing you lack? How do you reflect abundance when all you've ever known is fear? It begins when you stop asking for more and start becoming more stable in your faith, more disciplined in your mind, more intentional with your energy. Because here's the twist: money doesn't change you, it reveals you. If you're anxious now, you'll be anxious with more. If you feel unworthy now, you'll sabotage the blessing later. But if you find peace now, structure now, certainty now, then money has a foundation to land on. It doesn't just appear. And when you elevate who you are, you elevate what reflects back. The impact, you stop chasing. You start aligning. You treat your energy like a sacred space. You track your thoughts the way people track their finances. And slowly the mirror shifts. Money becomes a byproduct, not a pursuit. It comes because you are whole, not because you are hungry. And that shift is everything. Scarcity is not real. It is rehearsed. Every time you affirm lack, you delay your own rhythm. Scarcity is a thought pattern, not a universal truth. Scarcity isn't something you're born with. It's something you're taught, something you practice until it becomes familiar and then becomes reality. But understand this, scarcity is not real. It is rehearsed, repeated, reinforced. And once you stop rehearsing it, it starts to dissolve. Think back. How many times did you hear, "We can't afford that," or "There's never enough," or "Life's always been a struggle"? You absorbed that, not just the words, but the energy behind them. And slowly, you built your rhythm around fear. You learned to expect lash, to flinch when opportunities showed up, to second-guess your desires, to limit yourself before life ever did. The detail is brutal. You can rehearse scarcity so well that it becomes your automatic response. You don't even notice you're doing it. You see a price tag and feel tension. You plan your dreams around limitation. You shrink your vision to fit your comfort zone. And the worst part, you believe you're being realistic. But realism rooted in fear isn't wisdom, it's surrender. The challenge is unlearning the survival script. It means catching the thought before it builds momentum. It means refusing to say "I can't," not because you're lying to yourself, but because you're no longer willing to program your future with fear. It means choosing to rehearse abundance, even when you don't see it yet, even when the old story screams louder than your new belief. Here's the twist. Your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and repetition. What you repeat becomes familiar, and what is familiar becomes true. So if you rehearse wealth, it becomes your norm. If you rehearse opportunity, it starts showing up, not because magic, but because you finally stop rejecting what was always available. Scarcity was never in the universe. It was in your language, in your body, in your subconscious rituals. But it doesn't belong to you. It was passed down, and now you have the power to break it. The impact? You stop reacting in fear. You start choosing in power. You set new rhythms. You become generous, not just with money, but with vision, with energy, with faith. And the universe meets you because you no longer move as a beggar. You move as one who remembers. There has always been enough. You just stopped rehearsing the law. You're not waiting for a miracle. You are the missing piece. The rhythm of life will not dance until you step in. What you call delay is often life waiting for you to finally believe you belong. You've been standing there hoping, wishing, praying, watching others rise while your own path stays clouded. You've told yourself, "My time will come." But what if I told you, your time isn't hiding from you? It's waiting on you to step in. We're taught to wait, to be patient, to surrender to timing. And yes, timing matters. But there's a line where waiting becomes hiding, where faith becomes passivity, where patience becomes fear in disguise. Back in the beginning, maybe you were full of fire. You tried, you launched, you put your heart out into the world. But life hit back. You failed. You were rejected. And over time you began to shrink. You stayed ready, but you stopped showing up. You said you were waiting for a sign, but deep down you were afraid the sign would say no. The detail is this: you don't need another miracle. You don't need another door to open. What you need is to enter the rhythm that's already playing around you. You are not powerless. You are the piece that's been missing from your own equation. The challenge is confronting your own hesitation, because it's easy to say divine timing and never admit you're scared to move. It's easier to blame the delay than to accept the truth. You stopped believing in your own capacity, but the rhythm doesn't move without you. The melody won't rise until you hum your first note. and no one is coming to drag you into alignment. You have to return yourself. And here's the twist. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being ready. It's about being willing to show up messy, to act before you're certain, to walk toward the unknown as if it already knows your name. Because it does. The rhythm of life is sacred, but it is not passive. It honors the bold. It responds to movement. The moment you step in, the tempo shifts. You begin to notice synchronicities. You hear new ideas. You meet the right people. Because the universe was never absent. It was simply waiting for you to stop waiting. The impact. You stop hoping life will rescue you, and you start becoming the one who rescues yourself. You shift from delay to decision. You move from fear to flow. And suddenly everything feels like it's speeding up. Not because the world changed, but because you finally did. Divine order has never failed. Only our faith has fainted. When you return to divine rhythm, what was missing finds you. Life is not out of order. We simply forget how to listen to its flow. There's a sacred order underneath all things. A current beneath the chaos. A plan within the pain. But when we forget that, we panic. We assume everything is falling apart, when in truth, it's falling into place. You've seen seasons where nothing made sense, where loss hit hard, where silence stretched long, where doors slammed shut. And in that confusion, your faith, once solid, once loud, became a whisper. You still believed, but barely. You prayed, but not with the same fire. You started to question if divine order had forgotten your name. But divine order is not fragile. It doesn't need your timeline. It doesn't need your approval. It only asks for your alignment. It only asks that you trust the invisible, especially when the visible is screaming doubt. The detail you missed was this. Faith isn't just believing in the light. It's standing still in the dark and declaring, there's light here even if I can't see it yet. It's choosing not to interpret every delay as denial. It's understanding that when things fall away, it's often to make room for what actually fits. The challenge is that divine order often looks like disorder. It breaks plans. It exposes false paths. It removes people we thought were permanent. And in the moment it hurts, because we mistake divine surgery for chaos, when it's actually mercy in motion. But the twist is beautiful. The moment you return to the rhythm, even quietly, even shakily, the path begins to reveal itself. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Your next step becomes clear. Your inner knowing reignites. And slowly, the fog lifts. Because divine order never left. It was simply waiting for your faith to find its voice again. And when it does, you no longer walk blind. You walk guided. You no longer react. You respond. You no longer chase certainty. You walk in trust. You stop forcing life to move at your pace, and you start flowing with its sacred beat. You stop fighting what's leaving and start welcoming what's arriving. You rest deeper, even in motion, and suddenly, the same world that once felt cold feels kind again. Because divine order doesn't need to explain itself. It just needs your trust. And when your faith stops fainting, your life starts rising. You don't need another motivational video. You need a mirror, a soul-deep confrontation, a reckoning with the version of you that's been hiding, pretending, settling. Because let's be honest, how long will you keep rehearsing your pain instead of rewriting your path? How many more excuses will you dress up as logic? How many more divine nudges will you ignore before life breaks you, just enough to make you finally pay attention? You were not sent here to crawl through life. You were born with the storm in your lungs and a mission in your bones. But somewhere along the way, you started confusing comfort with safety, and now you're suffocating under the weight of a life that was never meant to be yours. It's time to remember, time to rebel against every voice, internal or external, that told you to stay small. You are not your past. You are not your fear. You are not your failures. You are divine force in motion, clothed in skin and grit. Stand up, speak up, start again, because you're not behind. You're right on time, the exact second you choose to come alive. And when you do, you won't need permission, you'll be the permission. You won't need validation, you'll be the voice. You won't chase light, you'll be the damn light. Don't subscribe to me, subscribe to your divine truth. Your real journey doesn't begin with a click. It begins with a decision, the one you make right now.